Happy Tuesday, everybody. Anybody who's here, thanks. I am going to look at... I guess let me... couple of... call it old business before we get into new business. I have... how do I put this? I hate to get outside the gaming world, but I'm a big... I've been a big proponent, follower, fan of Judges Guild material, and it turns out that Bob Bledsaw Jr. or the third, or whichever, the son, I guess, of the late Bob Bledsaw, who was in charge of Judges Guild during the first golden age of the hobby, turns out he's not such a good person, which is unfortunate. I had just talked to Rob Connolly of the Bat in the Attic blog, and he had the license for doing some for, I guess, redoing, or just had the license to publish stuff for Judges Guild, and he had to, I will throw it in the chat here, he basically, because of what happened, or because of what's come out, he's had to basically cancel his work, his upcoming work, and he's, and right now, because he's not paying royalties because of various things, there was a big Kickstarter flop, I guess, concerning Judges Guild, or I think it was about City State of the Invincible Overlord, I'm not sure exactly. Big flop. I will post a link in the chat to there. It's just something that I read this morning, caught up to it. A bummer, but as someone who has followed them a long time and been someone who in various videos has said, hey, Judges Guild stuff's amazing, check it out. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to go through and delete all of that, and I still believe the material's good, and I don't want to say that the other people who worked on it, some people who've become sort of very famous in the game design world, are all bad people, but given as, at least at this point, if you were to buy it on drive-thru, the money goes to this person, and I don't feel good recommending it. So I'm going to try to keep that in mind going forward. I hate to have to think about that stuff, but you got to do what you can, right? It's something that if you look at the stuff he posted and you're thinking, hey, this stuff's either right on or not bad at all, or I'm totally there with you, Bob, then, I'm probably not the channel for you. Not that I talk about that stuff, but just can't have it. Just, you gotta make your stands where you can, and this is my little bit of making a stand. So if you haven't caught up on that stuff and you're curious, and I don't blame you if you just want to skip the whole thing, but let's just say going forward, I shan't be talking up Judges Guild, at least while this person's maybe still holding all the rights and will be getting all the monies from it. If some other arrangement were to come up, then when that comes, maybe I will tackle that when it gets there. But for right now, I'll have to point people towards other resources, which is a shame, because that stuff is taking away its connections is really good. But enough about that. I'm not here to rant about that, but it's something that just happened, and I just felt compelled to at least mention it when I am here to talk about. And let me know if anybody is listening, if the levels and everything are okay. I kind of see it here, but it's hard to tell sometimes. Seems to be alright. Let me know if it's not in the chat. Otherwise, if you're watching this afterwards, I'll probably have had a chance to fix it, so then it won't be a big deal. But I'm here to talk about, or go through, read, look at Monsters of the Underworld, which is the second of the two monster supplements that, I don't know if it's Cawood, somebody hit me to that, was nice enough to send me to check out. They have a Kickstarter that's running now. I think it's in its closing stages, so hit that if you want to. The link is in the description. The first one I have to redo because I had a weird audio issue. So just, I guess, in terms of old business, I got a little bit of some new equipment just to help me out. I'm a one-man band. I don't have somebody who is taking care of the show while I'm on camera, so I'm trying to do everything myself, and I am also learning all this stuff myself. So all kinds of stuff happens, and I'm not always able to catch it as it's happening. Sometimes I am, sometimes I can't, sometimes it's just nothing I can do. just got a YouTube error. I don't know what to do with that. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Sorry, YouTube, I don't know what to do with that right now. I can turn on this stream health tab. It says poor. Stream status poor. It started off healthy, now it's poor. Okay. Serious issues that need attention. Ouch. Alright, so I'm getting buffering. Okay, don't know what to do about that right now, so yet again, more issues. And I am plugged in through the hard line, so I feel like I should be getting enough networking. But I can't really, I don't feel like I can do much about it now. So there it is. Alright, so hopefully this looks alright. It might not. But back to the matter at hand. They sent me Monster of the Phaland, and there were some issues. So what I've been trying to do with with the mixer, like I'm doing right now, I'm trying to record the audio as I'm doing the video. The benefits, I have a new little mixer, and the benefits of this particular mixer are that it can record multi-track and do it hardware-wise. I don't have to spend CPU power to do it through something like Reaper. I can hit this, and it'll record the channels, and it will go. Great. Still fiddling with it, learning how to do everything. And I think what happened when I did the Feywild one is I had recorded earlier audio, and I was trying to record this new one as a new project. I thought I had hit, hey, here's a new project, now record it. It seems like what might have happened is when I was doing that, I actually hit play on what I'd already recorded, and so it started playing audio underneath what I was saying of another video. Oops. So I owe a redo on that one, which maybe I'll get to this week. I keep sort of I get new things in, or I make requests. People are nice enough to send stuff to me, and I have stuff. So I'm always trying to balance kind of my piles of things I want to do. But I do owe everyone a kind of clean audio version. I still have to go through the SD card to see if I can save the audio from the other one. But like I said, I think I don't have it because I didn't hit record. I hit play by accident. So I'm trying this again. I'm pretty sure I got it straight. I kind of double checked that I'd started a new project and everything was clean. I checked out everything on my headphones, so everything sounds like you should just be hearing the audio for this and not for a show of the past. But be aware. Now on to hopefully I'm nervous now that this the stream's gonna be all kinds of choppy bologna. Hopefully not. So anyway, this is Monsters of the Underworld. As I usually do with these, I have not looked at it before. I kind of like to do that. Here's my first impressions, and not a very studied thing. And plus, it keeps it fresh for me. If I'm looking at it for the 30th time, it's hard to get excited. I love the art in the Feylands. I think it was Feyland. And I like this art as well. It's hard with the Fey stuff because there's Feywild, and I think that's a wizard's owned word, so people will do things. So there's Feyland, I think it was Feyland. It's in the if you go to them and drive through, you'll see it. I got to get the name right. But here's the Underworld. I'm guessing it's Underworld like the Underdark. Judging from the art, which is also by the same artist who did the other one. Beautiful. Looks like some kind of not a purple worm, but like a greenish worm coming in. But let's get to it. Some more nice art. The masthead. Okay. Table of contents. Always appreciated. Now, like with the other ones, I'm not going to go through every single one because I don't want to. You want to keep the surprises, keep people coming. But I'm just going to try to hit the ones that interest me the most. Maybe try to hit some of a type. Try to hit one of this kind, one of that kind. Get a nice flavor of everything. Just maybe not every single one. So let's see. Let us go. Okay. The Underworld. Hidden underneath the everyday world is a dark, mysterious realm. There are some areas lit by phosphorescent plants, but most are cloaked in inky darkness. Narrow tunnels branch off into massive hidden caverns filled with stalactites and stalagmites. The colors of the rock range from gray to brown to tan. Fast-flowing rivers lead into huge black lakes that never seem to end. Immense ravines are bridged by flimsy, rotten rope bridges. Streams of lava boil and ooze through solid rock. Elegantly carved dwarf and dark elf cities rise out of nowhere. Oh, I'm back to an excellent connection. All right. Little hiccup. So, sorry to interrupt that, but I just saw the little piece of good news. So hopefully that's good. So if it is choppy as all get out at the beginning, I apologize. Hopefully it will now stick to being excellent for the rest of the day. And of course, I'll have to look at this later to see how it did. But anyway, you get the picture, right? So this is the Underworld, basically like the Underdark or any other under thing you want to use. A class, underground, Underworld. That was the original term anyway. It was the Underworld. Stuff beneath the surface. Game Master Advice. I am always keen on reading Game Master Advice because it really gives you insight onto what the writers value, what they want you to take away from it as a GM, what if they have any notes or things that they want to communicate about what you're about to read. So let's see what they have to say. Bearing in mind the lack of light and chaotic nature of the Underworld is very important. Many adventuring parties will have to rely on torches, lanterns, dark vision, or magical sources of light. However, these sources have their limits. Even with dark vision, creatures can only see so far and only shades of gray. Light sources will alert monsters of any visitors. Many of the denizens of this land can see in the dark and will have an advantage. Much of the travel will be in difficult terrain with the slippery ground and rubble littered everywhere. Getting lost in this underground territory is not uncommon. The terrain is unforgiving and unpredictable. Some groups of adventurers might have to rope themselves together. It's difficult to navigate for an hour, let alone days or weeks. Having mounts to carry equipment, food supplies, and other gear will help some groups immensely. Of course, these caravans will have to be protected, right? And of course, you rope yourself to your horse or your mule or whatever it is, and of course something happens to the mule, and then suddenly it's happening to you, right? So there's those giving you a look right there at kind of the hazards, giving you hints about the kind of things as a GM to challenge your party with. Obviously, there's just seeing stuff, so vision and what senses they have available to them and the limits of those senses. I think sometimes things like dark vision also, though, it might be very dependent, so ignore me if this doesn't apply here. Sometimes that vision can fall off really sharply, so if as you are in whoa, I didn't really mean to do that. Sorry, what did I do? No, not what I wanted to do. There we go. So as in, unlike say in the real world, in dusk you can see a certain amount of distance, and then as the distance keeps going, you can see kind of fade. Your vision will fade out into the darkness or in the gray. Sometimes with the dark vision, it kind of you hit a limit and it's just black or just dark, or you just don't see anything on either side. So check here. Obviously, it's going to be edition dependent, but that could be one thing. But yeah, they're trying to tell you, give you some cues as to what kind of things to look out for. Ways to challenge your party. If you're one of those people that goes, hey, we're in the underground, and they're treating it just like their everyday, the wilderness or whatever else, there are some interesting challenges that are there. Light is definitely one that gets underutilized in 5th edition, but I understand because whereas before having the spells to counter darkness weren't common, and you had limited resources anyway, so you cast a light spell on a rock or something that, sure, that works for, 24 hours, whatever it is, or I don't even know, maybe it was permanent, but you've used up a spell slot. Whereas with cantrips and things like that, it's a lot easier to keep light on. But of course, as they mentioned, light has dangers. Things, if you're broadcasting out light, that light is going to be seen by everybody, and it's going to really stand out in the middle of a really dark place. And then in terms of things like, particularly if you're not in well-lit conditions or you're stumbling around, that may be slippery and wet. You could slip. There might be rivers that open up, or ravines, or any number of different hazards that just become worse the less light you have. Let's see. I'm going to just read a bit more of this. Eventually, a party will need to strike a camp. When they do, they'll make themselves known. Food and clean water are also scarce. Adventurers might have to search long and hard for food, and even then, they might not be sure what they're eating. Sound also travels in unusual ways in this world. Echoes could confuse the party, or sounds from far away could warn of dangers. This is not an easy place to survive. It is harsh. It is a harsh and extremely dangerous land. So again, more fuel for your GM fires. If they're camping, that's going to be a big target. Sound carries, but don't just use it in the way of things hearing you from far away or you hearing them from far away. There are echoes. You could be hearing things that you think are coming from one direction that's really coming from another direction. Can have a lot of fun with that. And it should be difficult. It should not be easy to find food. It should not be necessarily easy to find a good place to camp, right? You can camp anywhere, but are they good places to camp? Are they defensible? Are you camping in the middle of a giant cavern who you can't see all the ends of? Maybe not a great idea, but it may not be easy to find ye old closet to go lock and defend, right? There may, obviously, in most of these places aren't going to be doors. You're going to be looking at, hopefully you can find a dead end that maybe you can set up watch into the one opening of. But of course, that same defensibility of that dead end means that you also are potentially trapped. And you can't just, hack through a door or do something else to get out. You might be really, really stuck. For the Game Master, it's an easy place to keep a party on their toes. Many areas have narrow tunnels or have the possibility of cave-ins or other kinds of rockfall. Ambushes are easy to set up and put the adventurers at a disadvantage. A group of heroes might have to find their way across an area that has no solid ground. Any enclosing areas could also put the party in a very precarious position. There are also dangerous cliffs to negotiate. A character might simply lose their footing and fall into a chasm. Very true. And I know that doesn't sound, if you listen to the podcast I recorded, the RPG Breakfast Chat for last week, the one that should be up, the one with the Bat in the Attic blog, I don't think we get too much into the nitty-gritty of it. Actually, I think it's maybe if this week's, which I haven't put up yet, if you didn't listen to it live on Tenkar's Tavern, I'll get it up there. We talk into a lot of the stuff about 5th edition kind of modern play sensibilities and old school. And old school, that would be something like, yeah, you just slip and fall and you're dead. New school, I think a lot of people might be put off by that. But the point being, regardless of where you happen to fall as far as your GMing style, is that place is dangerous, and it should be dangerous, and treat it as dangerous. And the tools are there for you to make it as dangerous as you want it. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Some places you think about and you go, well, what are they supposed to do? They're in a hallway in a house. Like, how dangerous can I make it? How deadly can it be? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They're on the bottom floor of a house. Unless I'm just going to collapse the house on their heads, I'm kind of limited into what I can do. But here, the terrain is such, all the kind of dangers are such that you can really add a lot of things together. And they don't have to be huge things, but it can be you adding multiple little levels, little layers of difficulty. Navigation is difficult, so you might get lost. Footing is slippery. Light is limited. So you think any one of those, well, that's easy enough. But then you go, okay, you got a lantern. Now your lantern's running out of oil, so now you're getting maybe disadvantage on checks before that you had advantage, or maybe just -2 or something, not full disadvantage. Then suddenly that leads to the fact that you're not seeing things as clearly, so you miss the fact that there is a pit or ravine or just a big hole in the ground that's coming up, right? It's hard. You don't know anywhere. Your eyes are looking in a million places, so you don't see kind of what's beneath your feet maybe. And even as you're approaching it, it's slippery. Maybe you slip, slide, boop, and then something can happen. Of course, it doesn't have to be a save or die type situation. It could just be that you get thrown down for whatever d6 of damage. Could be that it sends you to a different part of the Underworld. Maybe it's some kind of lava tube type thing where it's not particularly deadly, but it's going to potentially split you off, put you in a part of the area that you really have no idea where you are. Maybe split you up for the party if they have to make a decision now to come get you. A lot of stuff. Let's see, just to read a little bit further. Another element that could add more challenges is changing the way magic works. A game master could create an underworld where magic doesn't work all the time, or in the same way. Spells that help the players travel around might not work in such an alien realm. Magical light might also not work in the same fashion as on the surface world. Those are interesting. I feel like you should telegraph those things if you're going to do them. If you're going into the Caverns of Madness, what makes them the Caverns of Madness? Well, it could be that things like light or magic work differently there. But I wouldn't just... It's a kind of a dangerous piece of advice just to give. I think it's good advice as far as opening up the possibilities of what you can do, but you don't want people to just do it arbitrarily, and you don't want to do it for every underground location. You don't want... I would hate that someone reads that and suddenly like, oh yeah, because my players all have dark vision, so every time they go underground, the dark vision is going to work only half as far, some other goofy thing. It's like that. Probably not a good idea. A better idea would be use that for a special location, and then you can hint at it, set it up. If you're going into the Caverns of Absolute Darkness, wonder what that means, absolute darkness. And now you can find out. People could mention things. You could find clues about it, right? Even, like, again, I'm using names as kind of a shorthand, which they can be for cluing people into things. If you want the players to think a place is deadly, then give it a deadly name. But you probably can and should do more than that. But I wouldn't apply that to every space. But it is a good changeroo. A good way to make a certain place special. And by the way, that applies not just to the Underworld. Any place could be that way. You think of concepts like ley lines and things like that. You could definitely have places in your world that are special, that have their own characteristics. Just use it for special things. Don't go too far and just go crazy with it without context, because then players are going to feel, and probably rightfully so, that you're using an excuse just to kind of jam them up. You don't like the fact that they have dark vision, so now you're just doing everything to take dark vision away, right? Probably not what you want to do. All right, let's move in here. Some more nice, beautiful artwork. So what are these? Alliance of the Griffin. These look like these may be factions or organizations. Desmond Hawkeye is a monster hunter and a member of the Alliance of the Griffin. This faction, okay, there it is, faction, is committed to exploring the multiverse and fighting evil. The only other known member of the group is the Storyweaver, a mysterious figure who dwells in Feyland. I think we saw that in the Feyland book. However, there are about a dozen individuals in the faction. Members of the Alliance have been sent by the Griffin to explore specific parts of the multiverse. The Griffin is a powerful, wise griffin with extraordinary abilities. Each member also has unique talents that suit their mission. Desmond makes his home in a large manor which sits above a hidden entrance to the Underworld. This man is part scholar, part warrior. He often mounts his Valk, and we'll see that, I guess, on page 119, and flies into the Dark Realm. This monster hunter has explored the subterranean realm for many years and knows every twist and turn. And then we get some hooks to go with this faction. I like it. I'm a big fan of showing these things. The only thing I would say here is this is when, in that section on GM advice, give me some background on how maybe to use griffins, or how do you, as a creator, suggest, envision, I use House of the Alliance of the Griffin. What's the way that you when you did these, do you mean, because I don't know, in this case it's supposed to be that way we run across them. Is it somehow that we become members of them? Is this something for backgrounds? Player could take that as a background, that they are a member of Alliance of the Griffin. I don't know, and it's not clear, but it's very flavorful, and we get some hooks here. And some of these, let's see, the first one, we get 25, so it doesn't quite fit in a normal D20. We got 25 of them. I guess we just imagine it's not really something... I guess we don't really roll on this so much as just pick one. The Alliance of the Griffin sends your party on a mission with the legendary monster hunter Desmond Hawkeye. Okay, so we get to go on an adventure with the Hawkeye himself, the Griffin. The heroes must retrieve a powerful item from the Underworld. A dangerous devil-worshipping cult is based deep underground. Did I just whistle that worshipping cult? Adventurers must rescue someone from the Underworld. Oh, so maybe these aren't... Okay, so that'd be the other thing. So I'm guessing, it seems like the context is maybe that these are not... I was first reading these as hooks for the Alliance of the Griffin. but it seems like these might just be adventure hooks. But they're always good to have hooks. But it's one of the things that I would have liked. Not so much for me. This is the thing, right? When I read these, I kind of think about, well, for me, you read enough of these books and you play long enough and you run enough games and you can kind of get where people are going with stuff, and you get when they put in hooks, okay, I can just kind of run these hooks. But if I was a new person, I might look at that and like I did, just the way they're positioned on the page, thinking that these hooks have to do with this alliance of Griffin, but they're separate. And I like their layout, but it has that same thing, right? The Griffin is huge in type and the other one's smaller, makes it seem like there is that spatial font height relationship would seem to be that those are related to each other, but it doesn't seem like that they are. So more guidance could help, but it's good at, ultimately with these kind of books, what's going to make them last is how much fuel for your brain is there in these different things. And so far, so good. All right, so I mentioned before I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is the first one, and it's covered in blood. Always a good start for a monster. So let's read this one. Animated statue. It's a large construct, makes sense, unaligned. I'm not going to go through the whole nitty-gritty of each attribute unless it pops out at me for one reason or another. I really just want to see what's special about it. It's got multi-attack, it's got a slam, it's got a choke. Party of adventurers finds an old statue inside a dusty dungeon. As the group leaves the area, they hear footsteps and turn to find the statue following them. This sizable construct is known as an animated statue. Legend tells of creatures disappearing after discovering these monsters. Oh, I wonder why. Still standing, these statues were built by spellcasters to guard specific locations. It is very difficult to deduce if an animated statue is real or not. Yeah, and you'll find this with, or at least I have found this with parties. Once you pull one of these, any kind of statue, gargoyle, construct thing, then they will start to look at anything that is even remotely looking humanoid or looks like it could do anything. They start to be very wary of them, which can be fun, but it can also slow things down. So you start filling up your dungeons with these. Be ready for players to start just being very careful around any kind of statue. Individual immunity. Each of these statues were imbued with some protection from magic. Their creators have been able to protect the construct from 2 spells. Well, that's interesting. I guess, do we pick the 2 spells? Okay, under spell immunity, the animated statue is immune to 2. Okay, chosen by its creator. Okay, so essentially you're going to have to choose. And, this is one of those things, right? Don't use this ability to be overly, overly mean. This is where you can kind of put your metagaming to the side a little bit. So it makes sense to pick a couple of spells, right? I would say, thank you, Alexa, for that. I would say Magic Missile, Fireball, right? Those seem to be 2 good ones. Maybe you could be interesting and pick something else. I wouldn't just pick 2 that your magic users have. Or maybe take the combined spells of your magic users in your party and add a few more and then roll some dice and just kind of randomly do it. Because, yeah, something like, I don't know, some of the really bread and butter spells, it would make sense to put on, but if it feels like you're just targeting them too much, it's gonna come off like you have crafted this statue just for them. And if you're in some dungeon that hasn't been touched in 1,000 years and eons since the fall of Atlantis, it doesn't really make much sense that these guys would be on top of exactly what your party magic users have. So use that with, be mindful of how you use it. Constructed nature. All right, so it's a little bit of a twist on your everyday construct, right? With the spell immunities. Behemoth. All right, so I'm trying to think of what to see. I'm gonna see. The boatman. All right, I want to see the boatman. Remember, I'm not going through all of these, so I apologize if I skip right over one that you are keenly interested in. But obviously, the book is there and drive through. And if it's anything like the Phalanx one, it seems like it is definitely worthy of a pickup, but if you're unsure if it's for you, stay tuned on the stream and we'll keep going through it. But I am interested in the boatman. It's a large fiend, neutral evil. It's got an ore spear. Is that a war spear? The text is small. This is my old man eyes. I do not have my glasses handy. I'm guessing it's going to be the ore spear. This is where the art is nice. And I mentioned when another one of these read reviews sometime read-alongs, read-throughs, that the art can sometimes help you if you are unsure if something is. You can look at a piece of art or just a drawing or diagram. And in this case, you can look at the art and say, okay, he uses oars. He uses spears as oars. And sorry for hopefully you can't hear it, but in case you can, my phone is ringing in the background, and it's annoying. Nothing I can do about it. Anyway, the ore spears, melee weapon attack, bludgeoning or piercing. That's cool, and it does some necrotic damage on top of it. Nice. Ooh, it's got a dark touch. What does a dark touch do? Reduces their hit point max. I kind of like that mechanic. I have liked it in other things when I've seen it, this idea of you reducing their hit point. It feels like, in a way, it's that negative levels or energy drain in just a different way as you keep reducing their hit point max. I haven't seen it in play anywhere, either myself or in a game that just I've watched. I wonder about the math, if it gets fiddly. Someone tell me if the math does or does not get fiddly doing that, reducing hit point maxes, but I do like it as a thing. I wonder if it would be easier just to reduce con in general, but I don't know. The nice thing about not reducing con, or not nice thing, or would be an interesting twist would be, right, if you're reducing con, then multiple hits of things that do that would become harder and harder to resist because your con saves would keep getting worse. Because this is a con save, so if you have starts off as a DC 15 con save, you have a pretty good con. You might have you might have an okay chance of passing, but if it's draining your con away, those checks will get harder and harder. I don't know, but I like it. But I have wondered if it's how finicky it is. So let me know if you find it, if you've used it and you've found it finicky or not. It's got some reactions. Let's read the flavor text. Guiding boats around gloomy underground rivers and endless lakes are villainous boatmen. They appear as dark-cloaked figures with large hoods. What hides beneath the hood is unknown. This tall fiend is a very tricky creature to deal with. He's a fiendish ferryman. Boatmen will help transport creatures around the underworld for a price. A number of the local humanoids won't deal with these fiends. However, these fae do know their way around the strange land. Are we saying fiend and fae are synonymous, or is that a typo? I'm gonna guess that they meant these fiends and somehow got to fae instead. Agile agitator. Boatmen are quick and able to react quickly. Wait. Boatmen are quick and able to react quickly. Well, okay. Alright, quick and quickly, sure. If engaged in combat, they fight with a unique oar that doubles as a quarterstaff with a blade on one end. So the picture has a blade on two ends, but this is saying it's a blade on one end. Either way, it's cool. Terrible toll. The cost of passage might be gold or a favor or something else. Ultimately, these fiends will do whatever they think they can get away with. Ooh, and here's Flora of the Underworld. I really like the Flora of the Fae lands. That might have been my kind of secret favorite part of that, with all these great features, plants, and other things that you could fill. Here we have dungi fungi, a red mushroom with white spots. Once consumed, your intelligence score is lowered by 2 for a day. Okay. And this is good too, because remember they said in the GM advice about things to eat and you may not want to eat it. Well, here's one. You can eat it. You can consume it, so it can be food, but it has a price. But what do you do if you're desperate? What do you do if this is all you got? Well, you got to take it and just drop your intelligence by 2 and live with it for 24 hours. I would have liked for this, and I don't think I see it here. How do they enact their toll, right? So they have this terrible toll, but there's nothing here on how they can actually force it. I'd like a Gaius, something that would give a real mechanical way to it. Obviously, you can do it yourself, but I would have liked something in there to really give me a way to mechanize that because the party will make deals, and if they can just run away, like what happens? They cross. What kind of favor could the boatman ask? It just limits you a little bit, because if you can only ask things that are if the boatman's helping you cross a lake, and they say, "Oh, I will help you cross the lake, but first you must do this for me." It has to be something on that side of the lake that you're on, because if it's on the other side of the lake, how could they can't send you out without knowing you're going to come back, or they have no way of forcing you to come back. You just run off. All right, boatman, we will come right back with that big egg you want, and then you just run away. So you can only do that for something that's on the side, so you have to really kind of think about it in advance, because if your party is really delving and exploring, either A, they may just already have found, captured, killed the thing that the boatman's going to ask them to do, or you have to make sure your underworld is large enough that they're not going to be able to get all this stuff done, or you have to put the boatman in a certain place. You kind of have to finagle it a little bit, because there's just no teeth on this toll. So it's interesting, but I would have liked it if there was some way that they could really get their fiendish hooks into you, some way of forcing you to go and do something, and there being a real price or a real mechanical force to bring you back and do it, as opposed to just letting you go. Or, I mean, yes, I suppose they could track you down, whatever. Or, there are other things they could do, I suppose. But I would have liked, give me some kind of fiendish power that ties them, like a devil's contract or something. Okay, that was the boatman. Ooh, careless whisper. A whisper in the dark might be harmless, or it might come from a careless whisper. Wham! This foul monster can ruin someone's day. The careless whisper hides in the shadows and makes nasty suggestions to passerby. A group of careless whispers can severely affect an adventuring party. Corroding confidence. Brave heroes can find their confidence wane after hearing from this monster. Soon afterwards, they find their willpower is lacking as they engage their next opponent. Okay, but what does that mean? Is there more details? Shake confidence. So that's their shake confidence action. Succeed at a wisdom saving throw or be at disadvantage. Okay, so I like that. So this is the flavor, and then there's going to be the actual mechanics in the boxed stats. Helpless heroes. Adventurers can find themselves more feeling more vulnerable. Okay, that's another typo. Feeling more vulnerable after hearing from this influential monster. Victims find their ability to fight off certain magical attacks is compromised. Now looks like it's uninspired. The Careless Whisper targets one creature it can see within 10 feet. If the target can hear the Careless Whisper, the target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be at disadvantage for all saving throws for 1 minute. Okay, so the first one was disadvantage for initiative for a day. Wow. So you got to track that one for a while. Confidence really is shook. Then the other one, uninspire, lasts for a minute, so probably only for the duration of the combat with the Careless Whisper, or if something else is there with them, but disadvantage on all saving throws could be pretty disastrous if it hits you at the wrong time. We got Cave Hydras, Chasm Fiend, Dark Maiden, a medium Fae, okay. Neutral Evil Fae, I like the look. Dark Trader, alright, you're kind of a tinkerer going around selling all kinds of kit in the darkness. Only CR2 though. Is this one of these guys that party's just gonna murder for all their stuff? Let's see what they say about it. Interesting if he's going to have any protections, because he's only CR2, so he's not super powerful, super strong. So what keeps parties from just ganking these guys for all they've got? Trading in the darkest realms is a complicated business. The mysterious dark traders are a key part of the economy in this unpredictable land. Food, goods, equipment, flora, minerals, hirelings, and even slaves are some of the resources that are traded or sold. These Fae prefer to travel in groups, sometimes with others of their kind or with other humanoids. They are savvy salesmen. Dark traders will always try to make the best deal for themselves and take advantage of others. They often convince others to purchase items that they don't need at all. Few creatures engage with dark traders without being tempted to purchase something. Deadly deals. Sometimes the deals made with the dark traders have long-term consequences. A few creatures have ended up as permanent members of trading caravans. All right. So there's the color, and I am curious about the actual mechanical side of these abilities. They've got Dark Bargain. The Dark Trader has advantage on charisma checks when buying and selling products. That's nice. And their charisma is +3, 16. So they already have good charisma, and then they're essentially right at +8. If advantage is +5, then they're generally going to be +8, which is very good. They can cast some spells. Okay, they've got Shadow Stealth. While in dim light or darkness, the Dark Trader can take the hide action as a bonus action. All right, and they've got a short sword. Okay, so they, again, yeah, I don't know. So how would, this is what I think is interesting. The color, the flavor text is very evocative and good. Now I'm looking at their abilities, and I don't know how you get from their abilities to the deadly deals, because they are in no position to, okay, so right, so they're CR2. Your average, I don't know, underground commoner, these guys are well ahead of, right? Because their CR2 compared to a commoner is very strong. Because CR2 is really, by the original CR math, forgetting what you think about it, you're talking for a party of 4 to 5 PCs. This guy is a match, in theory, CR theory. So for a commoner, that's good. But much like with the not the Karos Whispers, the other one, the boatman, I would have liked something in here to tell me how they are making these deals and sticking with them, because when we pull these into the game, I'm not concerned about how these interact with commoners. With commoners, sure, I can just fudge or just hand wave that they've enslaved or somehow done whatever they do with their dark deals with commoners. But when, obviously, the point of these is not their interactions with commoners, the point is their interactions with the party. And with the party, I would like to know, how are they enforcing these dark deals? Because there's nothing here to say how they're doing it. This is one of those cases that you might say in some systems, or even in D&D if you wanted to, you could talk about reputation and their word of honor, and if players are just going around breaking deals all day, blah, blah, blah. But these guys are also evil. They're not particularly trustworthy themselves. I don't think that this is something where they have such poor reputations, one would presume, that if you could do a deal with them and break it, probably most people wouldn't take that as a bad thing. So I'd like to know what forces creatures who may be as close to the same power as them or more from potentially entering into a deadly deal. And what kind of deals are deadly. So I like it, and it works, but I would have liked a little more mechanical crunch on that particular element, because to me that's the key element with this creature, is that, like with the boatman, it's what these deals, they're all making deals. How do these deals work, and how do you enforce these deals mechanically? I mean, am I just supposed to kind of be that, oh, you really should go back and pay the boatman? No, you don't pay the boatman. I mean, that's not enough, right? Do you feel bad for not following through on that deadly deal? No, they're not going to feel bad. They're going to laugh. I can't believe you made a deal with us and we just walked away. I need something. I need more. The Deep Guide. All right, seems cool. And I like that these aren't all just monsters to kill. There's a lot of things you can do here for running social style encounters or any other encounter you want to do. They're here for you. So it's not just creepy crawlies down here, but you've got creatures trying to make their way in the world, earn their fortunes. Demon frogs, I like it. Demon snails, I like that too. Demon spiders, gotta have demon spiders, right? Diamond dogs. Pour a little out for David Bowie and the Diamond Dogs. Oh, we got another Flora of the Underworld. Is that Carol Stalk? A red and blue striped mushroom. Once consumed, you are under the effects of a reduce/enlarge spell for 1 minute. Aha, so it's a Alice in Wonderland reference. One side of the mushroom makes you grow taller, the other side makes you grow smaller. Only 1 minute, though. Crystal Dragon, I'm down. Ooh, Lava Dragon, very evocative artwork. It really feels like the magma is just dripping, oozing off of it. Spore Dragon, that's lovely. Draugr, I think that's in a. I think it's a. I think that's a creature from myths and. Whoops, excuse me. Let's kick something down there. I think that's a creature from various myths and tales, right? So I know that there is. I'm pretty sure there's a D&D version of it, but I don't think they can copyright it since it's part of public domain. Draugr Lord. More. So some undead for you. Here's another Flora. Eddie Bell, a thick green mushroom. Once consumed, you gain the benefits of consuming a day of rations. So that would be a good one. If you find a little field of those, you really want to scoop up as much as you can. Elite Driders, Dwargar Assassins, Dwargar Kings, ooh, Rock Knights, Dwargar, Dwarvon, ooh, this looks kind of cool. Construct, it's a Dwarf Golem. Dwarvon is a Dwarf Golem. That's a nice twist a little bit. We'll read the flavor text on this one. The Dwarvon or Dwarf Golem is rarely encountered. These massive constructs are built to guard the entrances to the dwarf kingdom or priceless treasures. They are mammoth creatures and can be seen from quite far away. Okay, so they're made by dwarves. They're not dwarfish in stature. Oh, they're huge. Okay. Formidable foe. The reputation of this huge monster precedes it. Once the enemy sights a Dwarvon, they often decide to head in the opposite direction. Many an orc contingent has retreated after sighting these constructs near the dwarf capital. I get it. I would retreat as well. Stolen statues. Some of these constructs are believed to have fallen into evil hands. Others believe that the Dwargar now have the capability to build their own. What the Dwargar don't know is that dwarf mages are working on a plan to actually allow a Dwarvon to be stolen. It will, however, be rendered harmless and be triggered to explode by special enchantments. Sneaky. Constructed nature. An animated object doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. Okay, well that's cool. So it's just a giant construct, but you get a little lore there with the dwarves, and there's some little hooks there if you want to pull them into a place, right, that they potentially have been stolen. Maybe the dwarves allowed them to be stolen so they could detonate them at some time. So you get some interesting elements there. And some stuff if you have a dwarf player, right? You have a dwarf PC. You could tell them about this. Maybe they know about it. Maybe you could have them roll a check, and then you can give them a little extra knowledge about them, and maybe something that can then be part of an adventure or an adventure hook in and of itself. Where did this Dwarvon come from? Why is it either not working, or why is it where it's not supposed to be? Maybe there's something about it that's odd, all kinds of cool things to do with that. Ooh, bear riders. Alright, this is a dwarf bear rider. Dwarf commander. Dwarf crasher. This looks like dwarf SWAT. We get the dwarf king. An infected dwarf. Alright, let's see the infected dwarf. Hidden in the ancient ruins of the old dwarf dungeons are a new group of dwarves. These humanoids are infected with the dark spores, an intelligent evil life force. They are mad mutants. Spores have infected these dwarves and altered their alignment. They are obsessed with eliminating other races. Interesting. However, they aren't long for the world, as the spores will eventually kill them as well. Civil war. Groups of infected dwarves have begun to attack healthy dwarves. A civil war has begun in the dungeons of the dwarf city. Fungi Fellowship. They're all fungi to be with. Other creatures infected by the dark spores, like orcs, work in unison with infected dwarves. The spores inside them communicate in primordial. Well, that's suitably creepy. So we haven't seen the actual dark spore creature yet. But here we see what they're doing. I would like to know more about the spores, what they potentially want. Is it just... I mean, eradicating other races seems, par for the course for an evil kind of creature. But do they mean to make them all carriers for the spores? What do they mean to do? Because if there are no carriers, what do the spores do? I mean, wouldn't eliminating all the races mean that there's no more carriers for the spores and thus you kill yourself? Or would they want to make some kind of thrall setup? Just continually breed them and infect them. See, they have a spore burst action. The dwarf breathes out dark spores at one creature it can see within 10 feet. Target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 3 poison damage. Okay, so it doesn't infect them, that attack, but it does poison them. Interesting. It would be something I'd like there, and maybe it'll be under the other one. If maybe that attack takes someone below 0, but there's an infection can happen. That'd be an interesting twist. Or maybe if that takes them below 0 the first time they fail a death save, they become infected. That'd be interesting to add some mechanic in there, but maybe that's later on, or obviously just make it up yourself. Dwarf mage, dwarf miner, spider hunter dwarf, spy dwarf. Now we're into the drow, elf assassin. We got an infected drow. Now that one looks like she's seen better days. Yep, she's got the spore burst attack too. Doesn't do a lot of damage, so be really, I feel like if it only does 3 poison damage. What CR are these? They're only CR 1. But it isn't one of those things that you could almost use these like minions. You're just throwing a bunch at them and they're just constantly just breathing out spores on you. It's like an Underworld alternate zombie, right? They're just going to come. They're not particularly intelligent. Though their intelligence, they say, is 10. But they don't seem like they have any particular tactics. Maybe they just use... It's weird because the art makes it seem more zombie-like, but they still have their innate spell casting and such, so you'd have to figure out what kind of tactics you'd want to use with them. Drow Noble Elf, Drow Ranger Elf, Rebel. With a rebel yell, the drow say elf, elf, elf. Alright. Rebel Mage, Drow Sage, Spider Rider. Not a Drider, just a Spider Rider. Drow Spy. I kind of like that they have these spies. I didn't read about them. Maybe the next spy I'll recover that one, because I'm interested to see what they give them to do. But it's nice that they give you full coverage of this sort of at least active civil servant types of these various peoples. I mean, I would even love to see what's a drow commoner like, right? What's one of these underworld dwarf commoners like, merchants, other people. Here we got a funga plant thing. It's medium. Looks like it's got a mushroom head. It can headbutt. And this has a spore burst thing too. Let's see what they sell. I guess this one, I think maybe I'm gonna be in this theme of reading stuff that has to do with that dark spores, because that seems to be the ticket as far as the kind of lore that's grabbing me right now. Funga are evil plant creatures who live in the most remote parts of the underworld. These 4-legged monsters, oh, so they have 4 legs, okay, are created by the mysterious dark spores. The spores give the creatures extra protection from magic. All of the many creatures infected by the toxic spores can communicate by speaking primordial. And then, thus, you can communicate with them, though not sure yet what they would want to tell you. But if you've taken primordial, you can listen in. I guess you can hear them, understand them, get a little hint of whatever they're doing, potentially. Mysterious mushroom. The spores come from the Underworld, which is a source of unimaginable evil. Dark spores come to wipe out all other races in the underground world. So maybe they really just want to grow and be one with these mushrooms. And so since the mushrooms are there, they don't need other races. Rainbow Nation. Diversity can be seen in the many colors of these beautiful fungi. These plants range in color from subtle earth tones to bright colors or even iridescent hues. Secret society. The fungi are ruled by a powerful king and work with other infected creatures. They usually make their homes in forests filled with large fungi. That's cool. I don't know what the secret society means, because it's not really, doesn't sound like much of a secret, unless it is just secret because nobody's really seen their king or their society. I like it. There's the Funga King. The Funga Shaman. Fungi Worm. Looks like that might have been from the cover. And it's also, ooh, it's got a Spore Breath. Nice. If the saving throw, okay, so here's the, I'm just going to read the breath because I'm curious what more about, if we get any more info on the spore stuff. The fungi worm breathes out dark spores in a 60-foot cone. Any creatures in the area must succeed on a constitution saving throw or take some damage, poison damage, and be poisoned for 1 hour. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more, I always like that mechanic, I've used it a bunch myself, the target is also unconscious while poisoned in this way. The target regains consciousness if it takes damage or if another creature takes an action to shake it. Okay, so it drops you. That could be bad if you get a bunch of people who are dropped. Now, damage will wake you up, but still not good. Again, I would like to know more about how potentially a party member, or say an NPC or somebody that you want to not just hand wave, how it becomes potentially a spore infected creature. How do you actually do that? What's the process? So we don't have that yet. But we'll keep going. Gangler. Definitely looks scary. Alright, giant gargoyles. I'm always down for that. Ah, cave giants. Nice. Giant fungi. They're huge. Anything? Oh, okay, so still they have spore attacks. They're kind of like a giant Etten, but fungi version. Gloom giant. I like that. Lava giant. Awesome. Thunder giant. Also awesome. Ooh, the giant queen. Gloom shroom. Depressed decomposer. Unpopular plant. Yeah, nobody likes the gloom shroom. Not a fungi. But bum. Alright. Deep gnome. Elder. Deep gnome king. Deep gnome ranger. Goblin queen. Yeah, goblins. Nice to see the goblins are down here in the dark. Ooh, gold mold. Alright, I gotta read gold mold. Sliding over the coarse rock nearby is a shining ooze. Your party of adventurers all backed away. Hold on. Sliding over the coarse rock nearby is a shining ooze. Oh, period. Your party of adventurers, okay, all back away and stare at the odd creature. A gold mold has arrived on the scene. Like other oozes, this monster is drawn to movement and warmth. Is a heavy metal. These unusual oozes are found in distant, dark caverns away from any sign of life. They are attracted to other types of metals. Dissolving mold. The gold mold dissolves all kinds of metals and does significant damage to armor or metal structures. Unlike the gray ooze, this ooze completely destroys non-magical armor and weapons. Ouch. Ooze nature. An ooze does not require sleep. All right, so it's amorphous. It can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide. Doesn't have to squeeze, do anything like that. Dissolve metal. Any weapon made of metal that hits the ooze dissolves in 1 minute. The ooze can eat through 6-inch thick metal in 1 round. Yikes. And it can spider climb. So the one thing it's not telling us is for magic items or weapons if they're affected or if they get an extra save or anything like that. The interesting thing though is that it's eat through it in 1 minute, right? So it means that your weapon, I would just say your weapon's good for that combat, but then basically it's toast. That's kind of how I would do it. I wouldn't try to, or you could maybe roll a die for it, but to make it easy. A little mechanic for that wouldn't hurt terribly. I don't know if one exists already somewhere. I want to just done that, but yeah, that's cool. Cool and nasty. It would be nice though. One thing with this one maybe would be if it because this it seems to appear like an ooze. What would make it even nastier was if it appeared as a mound of gold or like gold vein in the rock, and then it did that. But feel free to make your gold mold even more dangerous, CR3 per this, by having it camouflage itself as either piles of gold or gold veins in the walls or something else that might get adventurers to come up and check it out. Get those greedy adventurers to come really close and then thwack it. Ooh, a spider golem. I like it. Little spider bot. A grim druid. No happy druid. This is a grim druid. Medium humanoid, but it's evil. Could be any race. Decomposing druid, stealthy survivor, dark home. Alright. I'm down with the grim druids. Not everybody can be happy-go-lucky. Got the hag queen. Illumini. I was about to say Illuminati, but this is the Illumini. Lawful good. It's covered in gold. Legends tell of a brave knighthood that makes forays into the underworld to vanquish evil. These disciplined warriors are known as the Illumini. Their holy light shines even in the darkest corners of this dangerous land. That's cool. This is where if they had that one faction at the front of the book, why not have an Illumini faction? Maybe there are things you could do with the Illumini. Maybe you could join them. Maybe they could give you, they could have quests and things to do. Wither the Illumini. Oh, we got a Lich King. Werewolf Lord. Madcap. It's another kind of plant. Oh, wait, hold on, let me go back. Does this have something to do with the spores? Doesn't seem like it. Okay. Magmental. Oh, sorry, Magmamental. It's a magma elemental. Is that like a para-elemental? I guess so. The Minotaur King. Plotting in a shadowy, hidden fortress. I like it. Lawful evil. I like his crown. Battle axe is tight. Minotaur Lords. Minotaur Mage. I really do dig these different monster subtypes. The 4th edition had great... One of the things that 4th edition did well is had great guidance on putting together monster groups together, and this definitely hints at, in potential mixed groups, what they could be. They could give you more guidance on that, obviously, or you can just put it together yourself, but it's a neat concept. It just gives you a lot more to choose from. It doesn't feel like every Minotaur is the same. You see that there are different sorts of Minotaurs, and of course you can make your own. Here we have monster hunters. The Underworld is home to an unusual group of hunters. Monster hunters are skilled rangers who are focused on a treacherous task. These brave souls travel into the darkest areas to vanquish the foulest of monsters. Fearless and supremely confident, they head into the heart of the mysterious realm. That's cool. I can dig it. Maybe a missed opportunity to have a Underworld-themed ranger subclass. Naga. living deep underground is the most xenophobic of all monsters. The Maga Naga is a paranoid, spiteful, snake-like being. This overweight orange monster is truly a horrid creature. So it's got MAGA in the name, and it's kind of orange. Is they trying to tell us something there? It's the Necromancer. A nightmare bear. Ooh, that looks cool. A night steed. Flying ogres. Ooh, boy. A bat rider orc. Orc chieftain. Infected orc. That guy's seen better days. The orc king. Orc scout. Is there an orc spy? No. Orc shaman. All right. No. The orcs do not have any spies. A rock verm. Giant ropers. A rumbledum. What's a rumbledum? Looks like a living boulder kind of thing. It's a large elemental. Looks cool. Could be scary in the right circumstances. A shade stalker. Small fae. Number of dangerous creatures lurk in the shadowy corners of the underworld. The shade stalker can be one of the most innocuous and still cause all kinds of trouble. This fae will take advantage of any creature that wanders into its territory. These fae carry hideous, bloody hooks and curved swords. Shade stalkers will often use their hooks to attack stronger opponents. The hook can drain a victim's strength. Ooh, that sounds creepy. Cowardly creeps. Hit and run. So their hook, you have to make a con saving throw, and if you fail, you lose 1 point of strength until you take a rest of some kind. So that could be nasty under the right circumstances. They're only CR2. So yeah, they're gonna have to use some guile, or they're gonna have to be teamed up with other things, but it could be rough. Shadow Knight. Powerful undead such as liches need troops in their war against good. They can call forth Shadow Knights. This evil monster is the opposite of its more noble cousin. These hideous creatures were once good knights, but they have been twisted by dark forces. Now, and you have a Shadow Lord, Shadow Spider, Spore Farmer. Poor farmer, the Spore Farmer. Boy, he looks so sad tending to his little mushroom garden. Alright, so I wonder if this is connected to the dark spores, so I definitely want to read about that. In some parts of the underworld, fungi fields stretch out for miles. Tending to the areas filled with dark spores are these fae. They have become infected by the dark spores and attempt to spread them any way they can. Spore farmers use their hoes and hands to tend to their unusual crop. They are often found scattering more spores on their local fields. Spore lore. Spore farmers understand what is happening with the spread of the dark spores better than anyone. Alright? Unlike many other infected creatures, they still have some free will. However, their community enjoys their lifestyle and predicts the spores will take more territory. So they've decided to have a beneficial relationship with the spores. Sowing trouble. These strange fae scatter spores all over the underground world. They also use the spores as a way of attacking intruders or defending themselves. Fungi fields. Large mushrooms located near the field serve as homes for spore farmers. The fae are usually found in large, closely knit groups. Some funga will visit these farmers and provide protection. Alright, so you get a little hint of their society and what other creatures you might run into. I want to see if they're... Okay, they have a scatter spore action. The spore farmer carries dark spores in sacks on its belt and can scatter them. Any creatures within 5 feet must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take poison damage. Okay, so more damage. I really want to see about how you get infected with one of these things, but it hasn't popped up yet. Stalagmite. I like that. Oh, that's a good one. There's stalagmites with mouths, or it'd be stalactites with mouths. Which one? Like C for ceiling. What's the other one? Right. So that's out of the ceiling. So I guess stalagmites. Oh, is it G for ground? Stalag? Yeah, so stalagmites with mouths that are going to kill you. That's always good. Oh, they can actually move too. That would be creepy if you were in a big cavern and they hadn't really started attacking you yet, but they're kind of subtly moving. Atmospheric. The Toadstool Fool. Oh, that's good. Another Fae. I'm just going to read the little flavor text. The glorious sound of laughter isn't heard that much in this dark land. If laughter echoes through the rocky tunnels or across the inky lakes, it could be coming from this hilarious Fae. The Toadstool Fools are the unpredictable jesters of the underworld. Well, there you go. They're bringing laughter, using the healing powers of laughter. Armored Troll. They thought trolls couldn't get any nastier, now they got armor. Cave Troll. Definitely different than the Tolkien-like Cave Troll, but looks cool. The fact that it could potentially be hanging off the ceiling to try to grab you is nasty enough. Still got regeneration. Yeah, it's got spider climb. Yeah, that's nasty. The Undervoid. Alright, this feels Cthulhu-esque. Chthonic, right? Gargantuan Aberration. Alright, is this the source of the dark spores? Tell me. Tell me, please. That seems like it is. Maybe. So here's all. So first they're giving us all the stat blocks, but I want to get in the flavor text. Here we go. Evil has spread into the multiverse and takes form in many ways. The Undervoid is part of this evil, a toxic pool of energy deep in the underworld. It is a massive being with huge tentacles rising out of the central pool. Has a brilliant mind. This aberration and its dark spores are highly intelligent. They seek to spread out and conquer the underground and surface worlds. Other pools of dark energy are also active throughout the multiverse, sowing discontent. Evil spores are constantly being sent out by this strange aberration. Clouds of spores and many infected minions can be traced back to the Undervoid. Prophetic End. Some seers have had visions of heroes traveling to the faraway home of this aberration and discovering its source in order to destroy it. Well, if there's not an adventure hook, campaign hook, I don't know what is. So there we have it. This is where the spores come from. I'm just going to go back a page because I want to see if there's an actual infection mechanic given here, because I don't think there is. Got tendrils, but those seem just, they can grapple you or wrap you up, but okay, spores attack. No, it just gives you poison damage. Man, I want a spore infection mechanic. You're not giving it to me. Underworld Dryad. Drow Vampire. Ooh, look at that. That's a creepy. It's like a vampire, but he's got spider legs. Nasty. CR10. A Web Walker. That's another beautiful piece of evocative art. Only CR3. Only. I mean, nothing to shrug off if you're a low-level party. Web Walker. Giant Zombie. The Zombie King. He is actually intelligent. We get some Beasts, Armored Bears. Boom Slang. Giant Armored Centipede. I like that. Looks like they're affiliated with the Deep Gnomes. A Dark Shark. Like a land shark, but underland shark. Does it fly? Or is it moving around? Or is it in the lakes? Oh, okay, it is actually a water shark, so it's not a land shark type. It's just sharks that live in the underground lakes. Echo Gecko. I always appreciate a nice rhyme. Germworm. Okay, so here we finally get, so not to step right past the germworm. However, they can spread sickness and they can make it difficult to diagnose. Okay, it doesn't really say what the sickness is, but here we get to the dark spores in a little box text. Flora of the Underworld. Clouds of these intelligent evil spores are being spread by the Undervoid. Any creature within 10 feet of these spores must make a successful DC 13 con saving throw or suffer one of the following random effects. 1. Become infected. So this is a 1d6. So you have a 1 in 6 chance of any one of these. Become infected. -1 to your con for a day. Take some poison damage. End up being surrounded by an spore-obscured zone. You lose the ability to speak anything else but primordial for a day. Your alignment changes to neutral evil for 10 minutes. Alright. It says, when you become infected, it says, see the spores burst feature on page 53. But that, I mean, I guess they're saying, do you gain that attack? Because that spores burst attack is your way of, you can like spit out spores at somebody. But it doesn't seem like you're suggesting here that you're losing your free will. It seems like the other infected creatures kind of lose their free will, except for maybe the farmers seem the closest to maintaining some, but this doesn't. I would have liked a little more. One, this is kind of hidden back here, and I think it should have been with the Undervoid. Probably should have been, there should have been a dark spore just monster page that had all this stuff in it, because it seems to be really central to the, you know, you could, a lot of things you look at, rules and things, you think of, okay, what is the implied setting? And so there's this whole implied thing here. In this implied setting of this book is all these underground creatures and this war that's happening between all these creatures and the Undervoid, who is constantly spreading spores and trying to infect them. So given that's a big part of this, I would have made this a bigger thing and not just a small boxed text that's on somewhat of a random page that you might simply skip over or have trouble finding. I would really make it something that stands out and give it a little more heft. Like, what does it mean to become infected? That doesn't seem like, it seems like they're sort of suggesting you just gain this spore burst feature, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You know, and the spore burst doesn't even further infect anybody. So I would have liked that you could have a chance of infection and then maybe have it some kind of scale of what happens, and particularly if this is something that might be ongoing, right? So, okay, maybe the first time you get a spore burst, you fail your con save, it's just poison damage. But now, the second time, it adds on to it, the third time, and you could go down some kind of checklist boxes until you get to you are now fully infected. Just maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity there to really expand upon this, because this is the thing that I really latched onto as being really interesting, and it still is very interesting, but now I feel like I need to add on and make a bunch more work to it. I just think they could have fleshed it out some more, but it is nothing bad. It's really good. That's one of those things that it's so good I just want more of it. Razorfish, giant slugs, monster spiders, a Vok. Okay, this is that creature that guy can ride on. Large beast unaligned. Voks are an odd combination of a small dragon and a giant bat. Okay. They're agile, they're loyal, look pretty cool. Here you get a monsters by CR, the Undervoid CR 30, by the way. You get some blurbs on underground races, which is cool. Dwarves, orcs, drow, dwargars, Sverfaneblin, the deep gnomes, aka the deep gnomes, goblins, and minotaurs. Here we have some tables. I always love tables, but I would have liked a little guidance on should I roll these and when. You know, for me, I got it, right? But for someone new who hasn't not used to running these kind of things, maybe more open world, Underworld, a little guidance of, hey, roll for these once a day, once a week, once they enter an area. You know, how often do you envision these coming up? Should they stack? Because one thing is an event is an earthquake. Another one's an anti-magic zone. I wouldn't call that an event necessarily, unless we're saying that those things come and go. What does it mean? Would like to know. But I like having the tables. I will never say no tables, but they could be a little bit more, give a little more guidance, because not everyone's used to using tables. Underworld encounters. And this is just D100. No, these are not by CR or anything, which can be good or bad depending on how you like to play, because you roll 1 or 2 and you're getting a lava dragon. you know. So you get that runs the whole gamut. And like, so here's another one, and this is just me, right? Thank you, Alexa, for that. You have the there's an encounter here with the Orc Chieftain, and I just glossed over the Orc Chieftain, but it would be nice to kind of get some guidance again on these guys. You shouldn't be running them by themselves. So what is the Orc Chieftain's crew like? This is something the old monster manuals would give you kind of in spades. They would say stuff, and you'd have to kind of decipher it out of the box, out of the text there. But they would say something like, "Oh, if you run to the Orc Chief, he's going to have 2d6 Orc, warlords, and he's going to have 1 or 2 Orc mages, and all this and that." So you get an idea of what crew he runs with. Where you can get the false idea if you just run this in the moment that, oh, it's just the Orc Chief shows up and he's alone. No, he's not going to be alone, right? So who's with him? Maybe give a group. And then we have another table of Underworld encounters. I don't know what makes this one different than the other one. So I don't know. How would we decide whether to roll on the first table or the second table? I don't know. Player character subclasses. Oh, okay, so there you go. Look at that. I had said, hey, we missed opportunity for a subclass, and no, they did it. But it's a little bit buried. I don't know if they could have put a, hey, see here for if you want to play one as a character, as a player, but it's here. You have a Circle of the Shrooms, Druid, Monster Hunter, Ranger. Ooh, we got a nice little map. I don't know what it is, but you could use it for something. It's cool. Another map level. Open game. All right, there we are. That is Monsters of the Underworld. All right, what do I think? So, you know what? How about I just not click? Monsters of the Underworld. I mean, I like it. All right, first things first. Art is great. It's well laid out. I think I caught a couple of typos, but I think you're always gonna have the ability to catch some typos. Not a big deal. Nothing that I think takes away from being able to use it. I really like the implied setting with the different races that they have there. I like that they give you different subtypes for these different races. So you not only just have a different version of a Minotaur if you want it, but different types of Minotaurs, different individuals, different levels. So you have, magic users, maybe better warriors, and you have the chieftains. Same thing they have for the dwarves and for the drow and for the goblins. That's all great. I think the monsters that they have are all interesting. They're all, from a vanilla D&D perspective, are all a little bit different, a little bit off kilter in a good way, a little bit strange, funky, which I think when you're getting into the Underworld and if you're expanding on maybe the regular Underdark or just doing your own version, I think having things that are different and quirky and weird is good. I think it's part of the fabric of these kinds of places is the fact that they're weird and different than the surface world. I like the whole implied conflict that's going on that they have set up here with the dark spores and this aberration that's at the bottom or in some deep, maybe the deepest part of this Underworld area that's trying to spread out the spores and eliminate all the other races. And similar to what I felt with the Feywild's book, and again, I'll do a redo on that video, or you can check out the original video. But do expect a redo from me. Is the only thing I have that I would say is a con, and it's not really a con. It's just that there's stuff in here that they really lay the groundwork for, and I would just like them to take it further, take that implied setting and really put it out there, because the part with the spores is fascinating and would make for a great campaign. But I just feel like that they just take you to a certain point, and then for some reason they stop. And I would just like, hey, take that another level. Give me more about the spores. Give me more detail. Give me some real mechanics on how the spores work. And the way they have it laid out is the only way you can get infected is if you make it all the way to the Undervoid, or you end up in the spores field or something else. But you have all these creatures you can run into that are distributing spores, and yet none of their attacks have a chance to infect you. And then the infection, it's a bit weak. The way it works, some things last 10 minutes, some things, okay, you can get infected, but they don't They give you no details on what it means to be infected. Just that you get, I guess, potentially you get a spore burst ability, which just seems like you're giving them something for it. Almost seems like, well, just get infected so you can spit spores at people. No downside is listed, nothing else. And yes, as a GM, of course, I can make up a downside, but I just think there's such an opportunity there. Give me more on the spores. I really enjoyed the spores. I really thought it was a very cool concept. So I just want more of that. I like the fact they give you tables. Tables always good, but I'd like some more context for those tables. They don't really go into which tables you should use when, how often you envision rolling them. They give you some GM advice, but it's really, I mean, it's not that it's bad advice. It's good advice. It's just super basic. And I think that there's more advice they could have given you specifically on the stuff that's presented in the book to help GMs who don't know how to do this stuff, or they're not used to it, they're not experienced, help them run these things. I'm not sure that advice does enough to help them with the specific things in this book. They give you a faction, but they just kind of throw it out there, and there could be more done with that faction. They could have had multiple factions. I would have liked maybe some faction pages, maybe some plot hooks that were relative to these different factions. They give you these different underground races, but no plot hooks. They just kind of throw them there, right? So there's no here. They talk about these things are happening below the dwarf city, but there's no information on the dwarf city or on these different relationships. They kind of just leave that up to you, which is fine. It is a monster manual. Ultimately, it is not a settings book, but when you're doing so much to kind of evoke an interesting setting, I was just thinking about, man, I just wish you'd lean into it a little bit more. But it's certainly not a bad, I don't hold it against the book. It's just, man, I would have liked that. But certainly not anything I would say that if you don't need monsters, if you don't need this kind of material, you know, would this hold you? Or if you needed it, I would say, oh, don't get the book because of this. No, of course. It seems like a really great resource. I just wish, boy, it could have been even more. Maybe I'm asking too much from this type of book, but it seems really good. The art is great. Everything is great. I just wish that I would have gotten more of some things, but look, you can't always get what you want. And of course, as a GM, we can always go in and fill in all this stuff for ourselves. So it's nothing that we can't do. Maybe I just kind of wish they had done it, but I don't want to take away anything from the book because I think it seems like a really good resource if you're into it. I don't know why you wouldn't be. More monsters is always good. I like the fact that it's focused on the underworld, and I like that it gives you a little bit different kind of off-kilter version of the underworld than you would get from, say, your vanilla Wizards of the Coast material or other maybe third-party books. It's Monsters of the Underworld. The links, if you like it, if you thought this was cool and you want to get it, links to drive through are in the show notes. But that's all I have for now. I will talk to you later.